Hello everyone, it's Niz. I've been working on this video under dreadful news. Most of you are likely already aware, but the Ranma forums have been shut down recently due to an issue with being hacked. With a few pages archived and no real news of them coming back, it's a real shame, and it actually is kind of scary to me because I got the old version of Awesomenauts from the forums, so if I procrastinated just a bit more, I could have completely missed out on getting my hands on them. Hopefully some sort of replacement will arrive with the announcement of their new IP, but for now, there's not a whole lot of places to argue about upgrades and ask for Solar Drill for the billionth time. So, in the forum's memory, I'm going to talk about 4i Visor, and why I think it's so... yeah. But to really talk about this upgrade, I want to be in-depth and thorough about it. So I'm going to cover the effects, the numbers, and the things that make this upgrade appealing. Chucho's Visor deals 130 damage over 5 seconds on base. This damage over time is not only procced on the person who is stuck with the bomb, but anybody who comes into contact with detonation range. The dot takes effect in 3 ticks of 43 damage each. Now, dot in Awesomenauts is typically weak due to high regen rates, the map-related healing cleansing the effects, and most knots having a sustain ability, or at least an upgrade for it. There are exceptions to this.
What?
There is one exception to this. Katara's Toxin is so powerful because it stacks the dot rather than resetting the effect. Many knots will treat dot as a secondary form of damage. This is why knots will often take weakling placement damage as a burst option, as burst is king. But dot is typically an effective secondary form of damage, something you wouldn't completely depend on, but useful to fall back on to whittle down or finish off enemies. It's surprisingly dangerous when underestimated, and under the right circumstances can work as an effective finisher. There are multiple uses for Visor that are brought up towards its defense. One is that its contact procs make it target multiple enemies, meaning it frequently hits droids, critters, and other Awesomenauts. This can be considered useful as 4i Visor is an easily applied damage that is dishing itself out to multiple targets even when they avoid the explosion. The problem is the dot itself has such a low DPS that most of these victims will likely be completely unaffected by it. The dot won't steal critters from the victim because the procs are too slow. It's far more likely that the victim will lose the critter from the explosion when trying to grab the health before the bomb detonates. It will make a difference in health between saw blade droids and give one side edge if pushing undisturbed, but such qualities can be applied to any form of damage, so I can't imagine anybody's using it for that. The dot on enemy Awesomenauts is likely appealing because it still prods at teammates who are coordinated enough to know to avoid the bomb's explosion. The problem is it doesn't counter upgraded regen. It counts base regen, yes, but the DPS of Visor is 26, while the healing per second with Medican is 28. This may seem like a small gripe, but this puts the dot in the category of what I like to call a dependent dot. It cannot kill an enemy on its own unless they're so low, the initial tick drops them before the regen out heals it. And also don't forget that Medican is pretty much the go-to in general for a universal upgrade, especially for knots with no sustain otherwise, which is a lot cheaper than Visor, so they probably got it maxed while you're saving up for the second stage. This means that this can't be used as a cheeky finisher on a low opponent with no health packs in sight. Now, does that inherently make a dot bad? No. There are upgrades in the game that apply damage over time that have a DPS below upgraded regen, and they can vary from niche to incredibly useful, but these upgrades are far more reliable because they're upgrades for a basic attack. They are constantly reapplied and used as a reliable secondary form of DPS in combat. The problem is that it doesn't really work with ability applied dots, as it's typically used as a finisher when the main damage runs its course. It's meant to be powerful to compensate with how infrequent it is due to cooldowns. Well, it's the fact that dot procs on contact, rather than when the bomb explodes, which means you're taking the dot's damage while it's ticking. In all honesty, this is more or less what makes you remain in the killing threshold of the bomb detonating than anything else, but this does give Visor a few unique qualities. The damage that is relevant for killing an enemy with Visor is the pre-detonation damage, which is 3 of 5 seconds. Since the procs are 3 of 43, that's 3 dispersed in intervals of 1.66 seconds. This means you will be getting a tick of 43 before the bomb detonates. But for the sake of not being ridiculous, we're gonna say it's 2 ticks for 86 damage, because the second tick is so close it's practically within detonation. But this means Visor, when accounting for killing off an enemy, is only accounted for 2/3 of the damage, which really goes to show the missing potential, especially when the strength of damage over time is that although the damage is delayed, blade, it has a higher total than normal damage upgrades. But with how this upgrade works, the strength struggles to be relevant. But there is one thing about this upgrade that I would like to call a potential saving grace. You see, if a player is taking damage from the usual damage over time effect, and makes contact with that source after doing so, the effect resets. This is most notable with how if you try to cleanse out Chucho's dot before the bomb detonates, it will simply reapply. This means the maximum damage dot can potentially do for certain abilities can vary. This is why Nib's Fireball can deal deceptive amounts of damage. Since the ticks are small and quick, a player will have the effect reset frequently just from passing through one. This becomes an important note because this means the player stuck with a bomb will take the first tick of damage, but after that, the effect will reset, meaning the person carrying the bomb actually ends up taking 172 damage if they don't cleanse out of it. This means that the person directly stuck with the bomb is in greater threat due to taking an increased amount of potential damage that they can't cleanse out of in the start. But here's where the issue lies. Visor is capable of dealing damage to several enemies it comes in contact to, but the damage is too low and the effect is on cooldown far too long for it to be an effective means of harassment. The damage overall seems impressive on a singular target, but due to its low DPS, it's more like just taking up space where the health bar will be after. And with the dot applying on contact, only the person stuck with bomb will experience 2 ticks of dot and the explosion for the majority of the bomb's damage. Anyone hit by the bomb will suffer 1 tick if any at all, meaning extra 43 damage on a bomb detonation versus the upgrade that if the enemy happens to hit an ally with the bomb, resulting in them taking extra 112 damage. No questions asked. The dot is more effective damage-wise in the end if not cleansed, but the raw damage has a better chance of securing a kill with such a slip-up. The person stuck with the bomb is going to be getting the worst of it, and yet the worst of it is the pre-det ticks that can contribute to the potential finisher, which is 2/3 of the full damage on paper and half the actual damage in execution. There's a good reason, however, why Visor is like this. If the DPS were to be adjusted too drastically, it'd be better than the direct damage upgrade in almost every way, as it would deal more damage pre-detonation than the more expensive choice. So I'm going to propose a change that I think will make it more powerful, but still not crossing the line of bomb damage but better. This took an embarrassing amount of time to come up with, but I will go into detail explaining why I think this will be very effective. Reduce the duration of Visor's dot by 1 second. If it's reduced by 1 second, the intervals of 43 procs go from 1.66 to 1.33. It's basically an attack speed boost. This raises the DPS to 32.5, making it capable of countering an enemy who has nothing but midi-can to protect themselves. This would technically affect the pre-det damage, but the only difference is it would deal 2 ticks of damage before explosion rather than 1 tick before and 1 almost instantly after. But this does have a couple of side effects. This lets bomb reset its proc on the victim a second time, allowing the maximum potential damage to be 215 on the one stuck with bomb, giving it a lot more punch on the opponent while not being more powerful than trick up your sleeve. It will have strengths and weaknesses worth weighing up while not being objectively a better option. It will give Visor the nudge it needs for the dot to be of value. This of course is more of a thought experiment than anything, as numbers may have to be fiddled with or adjusted. Let me close this off with something now. I get it, I really do. Although I myself don't think Visor's particularly good, there are applications deeper than its surface stats, such as denying rift teleports. I understand what it's like to have an upgrade that's not amazing and wanting to defend it, because jokes aside, no upgrade is truly useless, with the exception of Sentry's clone, but that's because it doesn't work right now. But I will assert that spending 330 solar on a dot this weak and infrequent in the average scenario is a poor decision, as this upgrade is situational at best. With that, I conclude my video on Chucho's 4-Eye Visor. I hope you all have a good day and be safe.